I wouldn't necessarily recommend following an influencer and it almost serving as your financial planner or coach. You really deserve a detailed, very unique, customized plan, because the reality is the recommendations that we make today highly likely are different in 3 months because things are changing so quickly.
What's the deal with all those old school real estate agents teaching outdated marketing techniques and living in the past? This show is about fresh ideas in real estate, diving deep into marketing, design, home renovations, and business development. But we also talk about lifestyle, health, travel, and just living an incredible life. Because the fastest way to financial freedom and fun is through real estate. It's time to build up your real estate business, serve way more clients, and have a blast doing it.
So welcome to the podcast. Today on the podcast, we have a really good friend of mine. He is a founder, also a senior financial advisor, and also a real estate investor. And he started up a financial firm here in San Diego called Financial Haus. Welcome, Andrew Baker.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
We're here. We made it. Oh my gosh.
We waited all year for this.
We've waited all year for this. Right at the end of the year, we've done it. So today we're kind of diving deep into not your typical traditional methods of advising clients on how to invest their money and looking at the full picture. And this is kind of where you guys differ from all these other firms. So tell me a little bit about Financial Haus, the model, what you guys do, and how you guys are different than most other financial firms.
Absolutely. So I like to tell a little story to kind of paint a picture as to why we created Financial Haus. I've been in the business for 11 years, and it was very early on in my career that I realized that I think our industry can do better in what we're offering, what we're helping people with. So it was the first year I was sitting in what was considered a sales training. And there was an advisor that was probably 35 years old at the time running that. And it was all around how his client had recently emailed him because his mother had passed away. And the client inherited $500,000 from her life insurance. And the email that he sent was stating that he wanted to meet with his advisor, the person running this training, because he wanted to invest half of that money with him in the stock market, in the portfolios that he helps with. And he wanted to take the other half and buy an investment property for passive income. And long story short, that whole sales training was around how the advisor convinced this client not to buy an investment property, but instead to invest all of that money with him as the advisor. And I can hear him say it right now. He said, because that is how we get paid. The more money that they invest with us, the more money that we make and the more that we're compensated. And at 22, that just did not sound right. That didn't sound like something I would recommend. That didn't sound like that's what I would want my brother to do, my parents to do. And so very early on, I knew, we could do better in this business. And after a few years of working with just people who are ready to retire, which is what I was trained to do, eventually a light bulb went off, and we created Financial Haus because we wanted to help everybody else. The average age of a financial advisor is pushing 60 or so. And in order to work with an advisor at that level, you need to have a lot of money, $1 million.
So it sounds like morally you guys are different than most financial firms, but is there something else that differentiates you guys from the other advisors? Yeah,
absolutely. And so over the last 5 years since we created Financial Haus, one of the things that really stands out about us, I would say, is our emphasis and goal planning around real estate. I personally love investing in real estate. I love talking about real estate. I personally believe it's a good investment to include in your overall financial plan to stay diversified and build wealth realistically over the long run. So, it's not common that you're going to sit down with a financial advisor who's going to go out of their way to talk to you about planning to buy your next property.
Yeah. I work with one of the advisors here, Erica Cordova. Shout out to Erica. And when Erica and I first started working together, it was, I don't want to invest in the stock market and I don't want to invest in a 401k. I solely want you to advise me and help me create a plan and a strategy around my real estate investment portfolio and endeavors that I want to do. So it's really cool because you guys actually craft a plan around every single individual about what they want to do and how much they want to do. And even if it's real estate or whatever other things they want to do, you guys can craft an entire plan around that. But you guys also have something really interesting is, I feel like when you say financial advisor, everyone, shies at it and says, oh my God, like I need to have $100,000 or $200,000. But I feel like you guys have made it special and attainable for people of all income levels, of all savings and investment goals. What do you guys do differently to make that so attainable?
So we at Financial Haus, we like to say we want to work with everybody that most financial advisors won't work with. And we do this, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we have different relationship options that you can almost compare to having a gym membership or a fitness coach. So that these relationship options that we offer are attainable because they start at a very low price, a very low monthly cost. And I would say we have no income limitations as far as how much. You don't have to be making a certain amount. You don't have to have a certain amount to invest. You're not required to invest. So, I mean, for the most part, so long as you're bringing in income and you have some room in the budget to work with, and we can actually bring value, it's likely that we'll be able to find a relationship that works for you.
See, like right there, you answered my next question already.
There we go.
Okay, so with the continued increase in housing, so we're talking about real estate, and I mean,
Yes,
we're diving
let's do
into
it.
real estate a little bit more, and we'll come back to other investment strategies as well. But this is a podcast about real estate, so let's
Yes,
talk a little bit about it.
let's do it.
So, I mean, with the continued increase in prices, would you advise your millennial and Gen Z clients on buying a home or to wait right now?
That is a little bit of a loaded question, but in general, I think that really boils down to, the individual and if they're financially currently ready to get into the real estate market. They have the funds available. They're not having to jump through hoops in order to make it happen. And what I mean by that is, we don't know what the next couple of years are going to look like, let alone beyond. But I don't normally recommend that somebody tries to time the market. From my perspective, and realistically, if someone, were to buy now and we look at the next year, interest rates might come down. And because right now they are pretty high, and our hope is that they're going to come down. And so in the next year, if you buy now, it's likely that you can just refinance that loan and have a better rate. But at the same time, if for people who are out there just waiting for interest rates to come down or prices to come down, that also may not happen. So a year from now, if you were to buy something now because you're ready and interest rates actually go up, where you're going to look back and be glad that you got into the property right now. So I don't necessarily think it's wise to try to time the market, because the second that the market drops or interest rates drop, that's when everybody's diving in. And then I feel like that, we can go back to that situation where, there's bidding wars and tons of offers, and that can be problematic for someone trying to get in the market.
I love that. Even as a financial advisor, real estate so well, and you know how to speak about this intelligently, or like a real estate professional would as well. So
I love it.
This makes it a lot more fun and entertaining. So many
Well, can I ask you a question?
Ask me a question.
What would you recommend somebody?
That would be the same thing. I would say anyone who is thinking about buying a house, they should do it when they can do it.
Yeah.
But the caveat is to buy something that they can afford, but work with an agent that can strategically help them buy something that isn't going to get them into a hole the next year if the values go down,
right,
or if something bad happens in their life or whatever. It's good to look at the whole picture, almost like a financial advisor. It's like, okay, let's look at the full picture. Like, you and your girlfriend might be having a baby soon, or, you might be getting a promotion at work. Okay, great. If you're getting a promotion at work, this is probably a good idea to buy a house because you'll be set with the monthly payment. It won't stress you out that much. But maybe let's buy something even safer that needs a little bit of work, so that, again, if you fix it up a little bit, you have a lot of equity and you're safe. So that's usually what I advise. Some people don't take my advice at all and say, I want to buy a brand new house and I don't care if it costs $10,000 a month. Okay. But
everybody's different.
Everyone's different. And I just kind of advise and help along the way?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's a difference between purchasing a property that you intend to keep for a long time versus a short-term strategy, like maybe flipping a house. You know, if we're looking at a long-term plan and goals, and you're looking to buy a house, live there for years, and maybe rent it out after that, then, you know, I think going back to your point, buy when you're ready.
Yep.
You know, it's completely different if you're looking to do some sort of a short-term.
What do your clients normally say when they come to you and they have, you know, walk us through what a consultation, I guess, would look like with a new client who does want to invest in real estate, but also they're open to other ideas. What does that look like to a brand new client?
Well, that's a great question. I would say the consultations are pretty similar across the board, you know, in our demographic, in our age range. Everybody wants to buy their first or
Under
second.
40.
You said it. Everybody wants to buy a house or their second property at some point. That's typically the core of their goal, starting a family and planning for the kids. Real estate's always a topic of that people bring up on a consultation. And so on a consultation,
That's good to know. I didn't know everyone would bring that up. That's
everybody,
good to know.
I mean, I can't, obviously not everybody,
Sure,
but
sure.
it's very, very common for somebody to mention that they're either looking to purchase their first home or a second home on a consultation, and they just don't know how to get there. And so our consultations are, they're typically two Zoom calls, and they're meant to be educational. We spend the first call just getting to know somebody. I normally like to ask them, you know, why are you taking time out of your busy schedule now to entertain a conversation with a financial professional? Like, what's going on in your life where you feel like you're no longer just forgetting about it or ignoring it, and you want to take control of what's going on? And then, you know, I normally just give a little bit of a background on myself. And between that and the follow-up, you know, we have a questionnaire we have them fill out to give us a high-level overview of their debt, their expenses, any assets or investments they currently have, and a little bit on their goals so that we can speak to that on the second consultation. And we are able to use the information that they give us to bring our process to life on that call. So we'll share our screen with them. We'll go through our process. We have visuals that literally walk you through it. So it's not a sales pitch. It's literally an educational, you know, meeting to say, this is our process. This is how we help other people. Here's our relationship options. Does this make sense for you?
I feel like, and I want your take on this, like, I feel like the sentiment around financial freedom or financial success or whatever you want to call it, I feel like millennials feel like it's almost unattainable to achieve what past generations, meaning multiple houses, like very healthy 401ks, very healthy retirement plans. What could you say on that? I mean, to people who are listening that are thinking that, I guess.
Well, first and foremost, I would say get out of your head, get out of your own way, because I don't necessarily agree with that, you know, because at the end of the day, building wealth is like training for the Olympics. It takes a lot of time and it takes dedication to wanting to make better decisions and form better habits. But it just starts with the baby steps, you know, I think why it's hard for a lot of people to take control is because they have these big goals, like buy a house or have multiple properties or, you know, be a millionaire or whatever it is. But it's hard for a lot of people to identify, okay, so in order to get there, what are the steps I need to take now? And the reality is we just need to start somewhere. Open up this type of a savings account or open up this type of an investment account, get $200 a month going into that. And I think because as human beings, we're wired for immediate gratification, it's hard early on to look at, okay, this $200 going over there and I'm not going to touch it. It's hard for a lot of people. They'd rather go to Barcelona or take a trip to Mexico with that money. So by actually having a financial plan and a coach, and identifying what your goals are, we can help bring that to life for you and help you visualize buying that first house and start to talk through, you know, once you buy that first house, let's live there for a couple of years so we can get that next property. And that discussion, that visualization, really can help motivate somebody. And so the thing that us millennials have on our side still, and the clock is ticking, but we have time. And because you have time, we have time on our side. I strongly believe that putting a plan in place, making better decisions, and working towards them, I think financial success is absolutely attainable. Of course.
Yeah, I also feel like you harped on it really well. People want instant gratification. And I mean, I'm telling y'all who are listening, you want an instant gratification, go flip a house.
Yeah, yeah.
Hit me up. I can help you. But I feel like a financial plan is a long-term plan that you guys chip away at yearly, quarterly, whatever it is, and it just keeps growing. And you can be as aggressive or not as aggressive as you want, and that'll reflect with what the plan or with what you're going to have. So I think that's a critical thing for people who are listening. It's like this isn't an overnight get rich thing. Yeah. This is a plan for the rest of your life, basically.
And I have a little story just to touch on that. I mean, I personally love working with people in the military. And, I have a client that was born in 1997. So very young, who, has access to the VA loan. And I had been working with her for a couple of years. We put together a plan. I helped her understand, the value of real estate, in conjunction with everything else she's doing. And long story short, I mean, she bought her first property through COVID, got orders to go to Hawaii for a few years, came back. And I mean, over those 3 years, that property went up in value, which obviously is not something that's guaranteed, over a 3-year time frame. But in that instance, like, this person who was born in 1997 has a lot of equity in her name now at a very young age, just because she made the decision to want to understand how it all works and, and start to actually make change.
I thought you were talking about Megan, our mutual client. I'm not going to say last name, but like,
she's another example.
She's another example, a young gal.
But exactly.
But like, she bought during COVID. She got orders to move back east, and her house appreciated. We're actually in escrow today, or we opened escrow yesterday.
Amazing.
And she's going to do well. It's going to be great. So, I mean, but she sat down with you to go over her plan. So
the thing is time flies no matter what. And, 10 years from now is going to come quicker than we all think or want. And so you just want to ask yourself, okay, literally 10 years from now, do I want to be sitting in a seat wishing that I at least started something today? Or do I want to be sitting there being very excited about the fact that I got started on something and now I have a lot to show for it?
So I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but you could. I feel like the media is really glamorizing like other means of investments, meaning like crypto or like real estate, risky real estate investments. Like what do you tell your clients? I mean, to say, oh, hey, like I see my friends, they put 20 grand in crypto or they flipped a house or they did something and now they're they're much more wealthy than I am. Like, how do you bring a client back down to reality about this kind of stuff?
That's a great question. And it is difficult sometimes to have that conversation with clients because, things are definitely hyped up in the media. There's these, unique success stories that are not really attainable or pertain to the masses, but those are marketed out there. And sometimes they're not overly realistic. When it comes to things like crypto or, purchasing stocks or stock investing or looking at real estate investing. I mean, at the end of the day, my philosophy is making sure that we're always staying diversified because no matter what, that's one of the core foundations of building wealth and mitigating risk and making sure we're kind of, looking at everything. But when it comes to things like crypto and all those other things that, we're seeing out there, which are constantly changing, I highly recommend that before doing anything, take time to genuinely educate yourself on what it is you're wanting to get into, what mistakes other people have made, what you should be watching out for. Talk to a professional in that field. You don't want to just, we hear about crypto left and right now. And just because you hear about it doesn't mean like right now you should take money and throw it in there. You want to educate yourself. And that's a big part of.
And I think that's critical with like investing in real estate too, or really anything.
Really anything.
And that's the critical thing. Educate yourself. Your advisor can only advise and educate you so much. I think at the end of the day, if you want to invest in certain stocks, you're probably going to research the companies a little bit that you're going to want to invest into, just like with crypto or just like with real estate. And sometimes I think people expect it to be just fed to them on a platter, and it's like, oh, thanks for the information. Let's just do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is playing, and this is using your money to create more, and you need to take it seriously. So educating yourself is a critical component of this. Your financial advisor is probably not going to do everything for you.
No, it's impossible.
And outline it all for you. There is some work from the client who's investing their money. So I mean, that's a really, really good point.
Yep.
I wanted to talk about AI and how AI is everywhere. I'm obsessed with it and I love it. I use it for Google who? Like, I don't even use Google. Like, I mean, literally don't even use Google.
Google
who? It's like, but it's like, you're typing everything in a ChatGPT, but like everyone is using it for everything. Yeah. And I mean, I even was curious to see like what it comes up with creating a financial plan. Yep. You tell it, hey, do this and create a financial plan for me. What's your take on AI and how do you see or want to use it with clients?
Another great question. And this is definitely a hot topic in our industry. AI excites me personally. I think there's a ton of use for it. It can make a lot of the things that we do and help clients with much more systematized, quicker. But there are definitely some things I think that people should kind of be thinking about or be aware of when it comes to AI, especially when it comes to financial planning or buying real estate. Mm-hmm. A lot of building wealth, making financial decisions, buying your first property, whatever it is. It's not just, what a computer can spit out to you. There's a lot of emotion involved. There's typically more than one person involved in those decisions. There's conversations that we need to be have. I don't personally foresee AI managing people's behaviors and their thoughts and stuff like that. And so I think that there's a place for AI for sure in what both of us do. But the reality is, our lives are constantly changing and how we feel about things are constantly changing. And what I don't think AI is capable of doing, at least right now, is, literally having this conversation with somebody. Because I want to know questions like, and literally ask you, what keeps you up at night? What stresses you about your finances? Talk to me about what would make you feel more confident in making financial decisions. What motivates you? These types of behavioral questions I think are really important to understand about somebody when helping them manage their finances and planning to buy their house. And so I think that there's a good place for AI, but I don't believe that it should be the go-to or the only source of somebody when they're looking on how to build wealth and how to manage their plan day to day.
You're 100% right, and I feel like it's a guide. Yes. Really, it's a guide, and it can create a general framework for you. But you're right. There's emotions. There's markets. I mean, like there's weather. There's other stuff that's going on that affects your financial plan, health. Yeah. So I think it's good I'm glad you spoke on that because I think it's becoming infiltrated into every industry and everyone is using it and everyone is using it as like, this is what it says and this is what we should do. But I think everyone should use it as a guide and create their own plan. Yep. And just use it to kind of get you started.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people who are listening on here are real estate agents or like commission only professionals. Mm-hmm. And I think you work with a lot of them too, but I think it's interesting how they can create some sort of financial foundation with uncertainty month to month. Like, how would you advise clients with that?
In general, I mean, we have tons of real estate agents that are clients or just people in general who have fluctuating income, whether it's like a base salary and they have commissions or bonuses throughout the year, or like in your industry, it's really just, you're making money whenever you close on that property. Mm-hmm. And that can make it difficult for somebody to manage their finances from month to month because it depends on kind of what your foundation was when you got into the real estate, business. Did you have some savings already set aside that you could live on as you built up your career? But in general, when we have people that have, pretty dramatic fluctuating income in their, and that's how they're making money every year, the first thing we want to do outside of obviously creating, a cash flow sheet so we can understand what your actual expenses are. We need to know what that bottom line
Like a budget, basically.
Yeah,
like
budget. We need to know what that bottom line is. What do you need every month coming in to pay your bills and live your life? What is that number? And to the best of our ability, based on, as you're building your business and closing on more properties, we want to create a plan where you can kind of start to get ahead of things. I think a lot of people that we meet with that are real estate agents, they're used to closing on a house, but basically paying credit card debt off because they were living off of that for the last 2 months. We want to flip the script there and, start to identify, okay, on the next house, when you get your commission, let's set up a bucket for 3 to 4 months that is literally going to, you're going to use that to pay your bills for the next 3 or 4 months, and then continue to build upon that and always be looking ahead. And the sooner that we can really set that foundation and actually look at that and understand those numbers, the sooner we can get you to a place to where you're no longer looking behind or just constantly paying behind, and you're planning forward.
I think it's also something to think about. Like, a lot of people are on their own planet living their day to day, like they're just kind of floating around, like, and then they make money and they're like, oh, just spend money.
Yeah.
But you guys are more than, you guys are like financial coaches.
Yes.
And also it's good to have someone to check in with. Hey, Andrew, I just sold a house. I made 15,000. Like, this is great. The first thing I would do is say, what do I do with it?
Exactly.
What do I do?
Yep. And once we set those foundations, we're also spending time understanding what your goals are, what debt you have. So once we have that foundation in place, if you were to, call me and say, hey, I just got a $30,000 commission check. I feel good about where my expenses are at. Can we talk this through? Then, yeah, we'll set up a call so we can just, we can start to discuss, okay, you have $30,000 to work with. Why don't we take 5 of that and put it towards your student loans, because it's a good time to do that. And then why don't we take 10 of that and put it towards the next 5 vacations that you want to have. And then the rest of that, let's put into your next investment bucket for
This is so
your
helpful.
future, or for the next property that you want to buy, whatever it is. And just because we understand really everything about our clients, or as much as possible, we can have that conversation easily and just brainstorm together. It's like, it's like having somebody in the front seat of your financial life that's helping you navigate, and someone to bounce ideas off of, and also hold you accountable to what we need to be doing.
This is such a critical component. I feel like so many people don't know how to strategically place their money once they've earned it.
Yeah.
And to have someone who's a dedicated person that you can lean on to is so important, because let's be honest, like we talked already, a lot of these people who are listening are agents, are commission only people. And so a lot of times I'm kind of like that too. I'm like, well, shit, like what do I do with this money today? And I think like we talked before, but like, it's beyond just the month to month. It's also like, great, I had a great year. What can I do, next year strategically to make, have some passive income or whatever. And it's so helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, just working with you guys for a couple years now, I just feel a lot more like well-rounded, and also know like, okay, cool, everything's kind of under control.
Love that.
So it's been really, really helpful for me.
Yeah, we want to always be thinking 5 steps ahead while we're actually helping you take steps 1, 2, 3. By having those conversations, but also reeling back to what we need to do right now. It can really help.
This is an interesting question. Social media is everywhere. We're flooded with it every single day, and there's a lot of social media. What are they called? Finfluencers in there?
I think
they're called like financial influencers. Finfluencers.
I've never even heard of it, but I could guess.
I think I just made it up. But yeah. But they don't maybe have the same credentials or licenses as you do. Are they helping or hurting the financial literacy for young professionals?
I think a little bit of both. One thing that I love about them is, there are definitely influencers out there that I feel like give great advice, not necessarily advice, but great tips, if you will, or great tricks. that can be relatable. What I like about that is I think it's a constant reminder to some people that, hey, you could be making better financial decisions for yourself. There are other ways to do things, and it can keep people wanting to understand more how they could better their situation. But then the problem is, they're speaking to the masses. When we're looking at a financial plan, we're not talking about rules of thumb or stuff that applies to everybody, because that's not realistic. I want to know what is going on right this second, and what do we need to prioritize right now to accomplish your goals for the next year? What are your goals for the next 3 years? And so, unfortunately, I do see a lot of times where there's these blanketed statements or advice where, in my eyes, I listen and I'm like, well, that makes sense for some people, but for a lot of people, that does not apply. So what I normally would recommend is, I think it's good to follow these types of people to kind of hear what they have to say.
I think it brings to the table too. You say, hey, I heard this. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think that it's great. There's great talking points, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend following an influencer and it almost serving as your financial planner or coach, because you really deserve a detailed, very unique, customized plan. Because the reality is the recommendations that we make today highly likely are different in 3 months, because things are changing so quickly. So we want to take those rules of thumb and stuff with a grain of salt, but just make sure that if you're wanting to act on anything, that you at least do your best to understand if that makes sense for you.
I think a lot of people who are listening do want to buy their first house, and they think they're way off with time. They think it's 5 years out. What would you say to those people listening?
Well, to your question, to your point, I think that it's these days more than ever, people, are obviously listening at what's being marketed, what's going on. Interest rates are so high, housing prices are so high. And a lot of people almost, are their own objection before they even actually start to look at where they stand in relation to their financial goals or being able to buy their first house. I find a lot of people would prefer to just stay stagnant or plateau rather than making a bad decision, but everybody has these goals of wanting financial freedom. And so what I would normally recommend is, if you're in a situation where that you could be making better decisions and you want to buy that first house, you want to build wealth, talk to Seth, talk to me, sit down and at least have a conversation about what those goals are and where you're at. Get some feedback. It is not uncommon for somebody to meet with us, and on a consultation, they tell us they want to buy their first house. And I ask, when? And they say, well, probably 5 years or so. I'm definitely not ready or nowhere near ready. I hear housing costs are high and it's crazy right now. But the reality is that person hasn't actually taken the steps to meet with you or understand, how to be creative in getting a loan or getting that property, or understand the steps they need to take to even get there. And it's not uncommon for me to see and work with somebody and help them realize, just simply through education and having conversations with their agent or a lender, that maybe they're ready much sooner than they would have thought on their own.
Yeah.
So just take that step to have a conversation. It can't hurt.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Hey there, if you like this episode or want a real estate connection in San Diego, find me on Instagram and subscribe so you don't miss any of these fun episodes. See you next time.